How do you think, was it a natural skill set of yours to be able to just take a look at what's going on in society, what's going on in the business world, and be able to dissect and notice these problems and come up with solutions? Is that something that you felt like did you learn that? Were you taught that? Where does that come from?
So here's the trait that I think comes earlier down the value chain that leads to everything that you just said. Because I don't think that am at all naturally gifted at solving problems. What I do think that I was born with a natural gift for, and I haven't quite ever, traced this to anything as far as environmental. So I think it really is just I was born with a natural gift of curiosity. Chad, I ask way too many questions to lots of people. And it really is this process of asking a lot of questions that normally lead me to the solution. And I fully admit I don't get there on my own, because to ask a question to a wall, you don't get a very good answer. But to ask a question of others, then you start to put these pieces of the puzzle onto the table and you can actually make the puzzle fit. So curiosity to me is the one trait that for anyone who has even an inkling of starting anything, being an entrepreneur, or just executing on something in their life, it is going to start with asking lots of questions until you're asking the right questions.
Yeah, talk to me more about that process of I think that's what comes to my mind. And I know for many people who maybe are going down an entrepreneurial journey or have thought about this is like, how do I know what the right question is? So you talk about asking a lot of questions. Walk me more through that process of figuring out what are the right questions I should be asking to get the answers I'm looking for.
There's a famous comedian skit where it's a comedian who's talking to his daughter. And I think they start talking just about breakfast. And everything he says, hey, we're going to have cereal for breakfast. Why? Because we had waffles yesterday. Why? Because I felt like making, she just whys him all the way to, they eventually start getting to the meaning of the universe, right? Because she asks enough why questions out of him. And in a time and age where we would both agree answers are so available. You are always within what I think the stat is. You're always within arm's reach of your phone at any point throughout the day, even going to the bathroom, even probably showering. You're always within arm's reach of your phone, and your phone has instant answers on it. But if you don't ask the right question to your Google search, there's no way you're going to get the answer. If you want to know who won the 1968 World Series, if you don't type into Google who won the 1968 World Series, Google's not just going to tell you that because you thought it. You have to ask the right question. And that I apply broadly to life. To find out anything, you should be way more focused on asking the right questions than getting the right answers, because the answers are always out there. If we don't ask the right questions, we'll just never get there.
And it has to just start with asking questions, period, right? I mean, that's the only way that you can figure out what the right question is.
I think it starts from the foundation of acknowledging that there's so much I don't know about whatever it is we're talking about. Letting that pride come down and just being very humble and saying, like, I'm going to ask these questions as if I am coming to this for the first time right now. And to change your mindset and ask questions from that seat opens up a whole new world of thinking. And it really actually, there's biological, chemical things happening in the brain when you choose to say, I want to look at this position, this problem, as if I'm seeing it for the first time right now.
But that in itself is even, I think, a skill set to be able to, you mentioned the word pride, and I think there is so much pride involved with, and I know I've experienced it myself. There's a pride and there's sort of a comfort and security involved with feeling like you know something, feeling like you have the answer, right? And so I think it's one of the things that many people struggle with. And I'm curious as to what the journey was like for you is to be able to say, like, raise your hand and say, I don't know anything about this topic. I'm going to approach it with just the intention to solely learn. But to be able to admit to other people, I don't know anything about this, and I'm going to ask questions, I think is hard to do.
There's a self-confidence and self-esteem component to that 100%. And you obviously can't know, like, you can't say, I don't know to everything. So for me, there's a lot of research. I've read a lot of books, read a lot of like tons of research, books, podcasts, you name it. there's a lot of things that I do know really well, and I'm proud and confident when that comes up in conversation and strategy talk, whatever it may be, to say, no, like I'm very confident in my opinion here. And then when I know that we're not in that territory, very quick to stand up and say, I don't know.
Yeah, I give you credit for doing that. I think it's a skill that I definitely continue to work on, is placing myself in being, putting that pride aside and doing that. Getting back to, my first question when we had talked about, were you, do you feel when you were thinking about entrepreneurship and it wasn't necessarily part of the vision that you had, talk to me about that story and process of when did you start to realize that this is a path I'm going down, or maybe it was happening before you even realized it in the first place?
Yeah, there's a great story with that answer. And really quick, a thought about what we were just talking about of uh, why is it that for some people it's easier to admit when that they don't know? Why is it harder for some? Why is it even a battle to begin with? If you look at the societal view of not knowing, right? Like the world has an expectation that you should know it all. And we are pushed. That expectation is pushed on us, especially in professional careers. How could you not know the answer to a question, right? Like it's almost unheard of. And so to the point where we feel we have to fake knowing. But imagine a world where I don't know was glorified, right? Where I don't know was celebrated, because it's in the I don't knows that the growth happens. So I think that's important to know for anyone listening or watching.
How do you think we would go about creating an environment where I don't know is acceptable?
I think it starts with celebrating when someone says it. When you're in a professional conversation at work and you get to that answer, I don't know, pat someone on the back, like encourage it, be excited when you hear it, because you are now at the point where you're going to learn something. And I think it's really just changing our thought process and celebrating it in as many little moments as we can. And eventually that all summing up to the big moments of celebration where it's ingrained in people's heads that I need to get to I don't know as quick as I can. And maybe that's like the simplest way to say it. Get to I don't know as quick as you can, because that's where you're going to grow.
And then what happens? And we'll get back to the story of your entrepreneurship story, but I like this path. So if we get to a point where we're celebrating the I don't know, we're at that point. What happens next?
For me, it's always been about let me find 50 people to ask this question to, because there's nothing new under the sun. Someone's already done whatever it is out there that you want to do, and they've done it well or they've done it not well, and they've learned something and they've gained something. And for me, whenever I got to I don't know, it was straight to my mentors first. Let me ask all my mentors this question, see what knowledge they get. And each one gives me, 1/10 of the puzzle. And then it's just in conversation, I'm bringing it up. And after enough people that I've talked to and asked this question to, my I don't know becomes, okay, I think I have a picture here. And I'm going to make, and we'll never have the full answer, right? We'll never have all the pieces to the puzzle. But I really believe that if you ask enough questions of enough people, you can get at least enough of a picture to take a step forward and then get to the next I don't know.
And so then as you're asking, you mentioned, okay, I'm going to go to my 50 mentors, right? I'm going to go to 50 people. I'm going to ask them. Maybe they're not all mentors, but you're going to ask different people. As you start to get those answers, what's happening? How are you evaluating the different answers that you're getting? How are you filtering through and figuring out? Because I think then you could also say, well, how do you avoid the information overload? I'm going to ask 50 people. I'm going to get 50 different potential responses of how I should attack a problem. How are you going through that process of evaluating feedback and then determining when it's the right time for you to take an action?
Yeah, I don't want to say that it's just a feeling on one of the, points of data sounding better than the others, but it really is like throwing it all onto this blank table all these ideas onto the table and looking at it from that 30,000 foot view and just starting to move pieces around. Hey, this person gave me this piece of advice, but I also know that they're in this particular situation. So take that with a grain of salt. There's just a little note on this one. This person gave me this advice. Hey, there's something really similar about their situation to mine. Cool. Note on that one, move that one up, and just analyzing each one on its own merit and then looking at it from the high level view. The picture starts to become clearer and clearer. I promise it does, as you analyze each one on its own merit and then analyze it on a high level after you've prioritized.
For more insights from top performers in sports and business, be sure to subscribe to Vision, Hustle, Grit, and Gratitude wherever you get your podcasts. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at Vision, Hustle, Grit, and Gratitude. Until next time, keep doing great things.